Hey guys, Sarah Ulmer here with Y'all Politics. I'm sitting down with David Baria. He is a candidate in the U.S. Senate race that's coming up, and they have a runoff on June the 26th. He's going to talk a little bit about the campaign trail so far and why he believes he's the best candidate for the job. David, thanks so much for sitting down with us today.
No problem. Glad to do it.
All right, so talk to me a little bit so far, campaign trail. What's it been like? What's your feedback from the voters so far?
It's been great. I told my wife when we first talked about doing this that we should try to have a good time with it, and if it becomes drudgery, then we're doing something wrong. How many times does a person get to run for the United States Senate? So I've had a great time. Everywhere I have gone, I've gotten a positive response from folks. And you can see by the way the map turned out in the primary, if you could have followed me around to the places I went, we did well where I went. Where we weren't able to go, I didn't do as well. And so now I'm focusing on trying to get into some of those areas where I wasn't able to spend much time. It's been fun. I have not only have I gotten just warm feedback everywhere I've gone, I have been really astounded at the response I've gotten from Mississippians to my fundraising requests. So we were able to raise about $300,000. I bet 98% of it came from Mississippians. So it's all very affirming, but I still have to get across that goal line and win on the 26th.
So the runoff is coming up. What do you see as the biggest obstacles these next couple of weeks for your campaign?
Just reaching the voters and trying to remind them that there's a runoff and to get back out on June the 26th. We're still in the process of educating some voters. Unfortunately, we didn't have the resources to go up on television all over the state, or radio for that matter. And so there are a lot of folks out there who don't know who Howard Sherman is. And for that matter, may not know who David Baria is because they don't follow politics at the Capitol. So reaching voters is imperative, and we have a very short window to do it, and we have limited resources to do that. That's the challenge for us.
So first of all, why did you decide to run for this? And also, what makes you the best candidate for the job?
I decided to run for this because I am tired of seeing Mississippi in dead last in every important category. And I have lost faith in our leaders to do anything about it. We've been sending the same people to Washington for 30 years and we keep getting the same results. So I think we need to shake things up. I think we need a fresh voice and a fresh perspective. And I believe that I can be that agent of change in the state of Mississippi. We need to change the conversation in this state where we stop talking about things that divide us and start talking about things that working families in this state talk about around their kitchen table, what's important to them in their daily lives. So I want to have that conversation with voters instead of the divisive conversations that we've been having over politics. I'm the best candidate for three reasons. I'm right on the issues that are important to Mississippi, and Mississippians, all they have to do is look at my record and they will know that. I've got an 11-year record in the legislature that would show that I'm right on the issues, particularly to underserved communities in this state, black and white. The second thing is I have demonstrated the ability to organize a good team and a good campaign and to raise the money. I've outraised my opponent, and all of my money, except for just a few dollars, has come from inside the state of Mississippi. So I'm supported by Mississippians, and I was pleasantly surprised at the outpouring of financial support. We're going to continue to do that. And then the third and very important reason is that I am the only candidate who has run for and been elected to office, not once, not twice, but 3 times in a district that is considered unwinnable for a Democrat. It's going to take that kind of a campaign to win Mississippi as a Democrat in November. I'm the candidate who can do that.
You spoke of November. So if all goes according to how your campaign is planning and you do win the runoff at the end of the month, plans for the rest of this campaign up to November, and even what you hope to start addressing as you move closer to a potential seat in D.C.?
Well, first of all, my opponent in November is going to have a lot more money than me. And I know that I'm not going to be able to match his fundraising or expenditures dollar for dollar. But I do believe that I need to focus probably throughout July and August on fundraising so that we can run a competitive campaign in November. I realize that's an uphill challenge, but I believe that with less money, I can run just as good a campaign and beat Roger Wicker in November. The issues that are going to be important in November, we haven't talked much about foreign policy in this primary. And that's something that we're going to have to talk about going into November. The other thing that we're going to talk about is, as I said before, what's important to working Mississippians. And those kind of issues rarely get discussed in a campaign. So you're going to see a campaign that discusses those issues. We're going to talk about the brain drain, which our governor and apparently Roger Wicker ignore and pretend doesn't exist. It's real. It exists. There are 35,000 young Mississippians who have left our state over the last 5 years. We've got to address that head on. We can't act as if it doesn't exist. We've got to do something about health care in this state. We're the poorest, sickest, least educated state in the country. That tells you where we have to focus right there. Health care, education. And then the other issue is infrastructure. Our infrastructure is falling apart. We have over 2,000 bridges in this state that have been closed because they're unsafe. We can't wait until a bus with school children goes into the river and folks get injured or worse. We have to talk about things like turning the page on this us versus them mentality that has dictated our policies in this state for too long, for the last 30 years. The first thing we could do that would be relatively easy, take our flag, put it in a museum. That would tell the world that Mississippi has turned the page on that kind of mentality. It would say we're open and inviting. And we have to change this whole mindset of not wanting to invest in ourselves. And by that I mean these things that I've talked about, education, healthcare, infrastructure. When did we stop deciding to invest in ourselves and our people in the state and our resources? When we did, everything started to get worse. And we're trying to be attractive to corporations by cutting corporate taxes, but those corporations don't live here. They're officed elsewhere, and for most of them, the only tax they paid in this state was the franchise tax, and we eliminated that, and that was a terrible move because we prioritized corporate tax cuts over funding education, over funding our infrastructure. Those things we have to talk about at the national level. And look, I'm going to be a person in the U.S. Senate who is a hedge against this president. Our president, to me, is doing some things that demean the presidency. He's disparaging our allies. You see just this week that he went after Pierre Trudeau in Canada, our closest ally. That doesn't make sense to me. He cut taxes for corporations that have offshored their profits and their work product without any requirement that they bring that back home. He gave a small tax cut to middle America, but it's temporary, and the corporate tax cuts are permanent. That's upside down. So Roger Wicker is not a person who will ever stand up to Donald Trump. He has tried to get so close to him that he wants to get inside his underwear. I'm not going to be that kind of senator. Now, if the president wants to propose something that will help Mississippians, then I'll be with him on that. But if he's going to continue down this road where, I had to explain to my 10-year-old just 2 weeks ago what a porn star is. Now, why should anybody in America have to explain that to their 10-year-old son because the president is accused of consorting with and then paying off a porn star? That's unacceptable, and people need to stand up to that.
So we're not quite to November, and that opponent, which is going to be Roger Wicker. Do you have any words for your runoff opponent, Howard Sherman, coming up in the next few weeks?
Well, Mr. Sherman has come into our state. He's a relative newcomer. He voted for the first time here Tuesday, presumably for himself. And I applaud him for changing his stripes and becoming a Democrat. But he's been a California Republican for years and years. He voted in the California Republican primary when President Barack Obama was on the ballot. So his choices were folks who were running against Barack Obama. He voted in the California primary when his choices were Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, and all the others that were on the ballot at that time. And he's held fundraisers for John McCain. He's written checks to the man he wants to be, Roger Wicker, and to Jeff Sessions and others. So you're going to have to spend some time in Mississippi to get to know Mississippians and get to know our issues. And maybe if you're really serious about this, you should start at the state level instead of trying to go to Washington and try to help Democrats like I have over the last 11 years and even before. Help them get elected, help with fundraising for them, and then support them when they're in office. Mr. Sherman's done none of that. So I'm the only Democrat in this race, and my job is to let folks know that. And then I think they will be proud when I become the United States Senator from Mississippi as to how I represent them in Washington, because I know the folks down in House District 122 are proud of the way I've represented them at the Capitol in Jackson.
We've been sitting down with David Baria, who is a candidate in the runoff coming up on June 26th for the U.S. Senate seat. Do make sure that you get out and vote on the 26th and cast your ballot so that your opinion can be heard. David, thank you so much for sitting down.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it. Thank you.